close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're about to discover something that textbooks never taught you. Tonight, we're traveling back 700 years to uncover the hidden truths of medieval life. But here's what's fascinating. As we explore these ancient mysteries together, you'll find your mind naturally beginning to drift, to wander, to settle into perfect calm. You see, there's something almost hypnotic about stepping into the shoes of people who lived completely different lives. Their daily struggles, their simple routines, their quiet moments by flickering candlelight. It all has a way of slowing down our modern minds. So get comfortable. Let your breathing naturally deepen. Because we're about to embark on a journey through time that will transport you away from today's worries and into a world where life moved at the pace of sunrise and sunset. In the year 1347, in a small village whose name has been lost to time, the sun rises just as it has for centuries. The morning air is crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. This is where our story begins, not with kings or battles, but with the gentle rhythm of ordinary life. Let's walk together down a narrow dirt path, feeling the cool morning dew on the grass beneath our feet. The village is slowly awakening, and we can hear the distant lowing of cattle, the creak of wooden doors, the soft murmur of voices beginning their day. Picture yourself approaching a typical peasant home. It's smaller than you might expect, perhaps 20 feet by 30 feet, but it shelters an entire family. The walls are made of wattle and daub, a mixture of wooden strips woven together like a basket, then covered with mud, straw, and animal dung. It's a technique that requires patience, careful attention to detail. The roof above is thatched with straw, bundled and layered with methodical precision. Each bundle placed just so, overlapping like scales on a fish. The process is meditative, repetitive, bundle after bundle, layer after layer, until the home is sealed against the rain and wind. Step inside, and you'll notice the floor is simply packed earth, worn smooth by countless footsteps. There are no separate rooms as we know them today. Instead, the space flows together: sleeping area, cooking area, storage area, all connected in one continuous space. The family shares this space not only with each other, but with their animals during the harsh winter months. Imagine the sound of a cow breathing slowly in the corner, the gentle rustle of chickens settling in for the night, the soft patter of rain on the thatched roof above. These sounds would have been the lullabies of medieval life, constant and comforting in their predictability. The single window, if there is one, is covered with oiled cloth, or perhaps thin sheets of horn, materials that let in a soft, diffused light that never quite reaches the corners of the room. In the center of the main room, a small fire pit provides warmth and light, its smoke rising slowly toward a hole in the roof. The fire crackles softly, hypnotically, the flames dancing in patterns that seem to tell stories of their own. Around this fire, the family gathers each evening. There's something profoundly peaceful about this scene, the simple act of sitting together, watching the flames, sharing the warmth. No artificial light, no distractions, just the natural rhythm of day fading into night. The furniture is sparse but carefully crafted. A wooden table worn smooth by daily use, simple stools carved from single pieces of wood, a large chest that holds the family's few precious possessions, perhaps a second set of clothes, some grain saved for winter, a family heirloom passed down through generations. In the sleeping area, the bed is a simple frame filled with straw and covered with rough wool blankets. The entire family sleeps together, sharing warmth and safety. Children curl up beside their parents, breathing in rhythm with each other. The soft sounds of sleep creating a natural symphony of contentment. The daily routine of maintaining this home is repetitive, almost meditative. Each morning, the fire must be rekindled from carefully preserved embers. The animals must be fed and watered. The floor must be swept clean. Each task flows into the next, creating a rhythm that's both necessary and oddly soothing. As evening approaches, the family prepares for night. The fire is banked to last until morning. The animals are secured. The wooden door is barred against the darkness outside. And in the quiet moments before sleep, there's a profound sense of security, of belonging, of being exactly where one needs to be. The sun rises slowly over the medieval countryside, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. In the village, the day begins not with alarms or urgency, but with the natural rhythm of light gradually filling the world. Our peasant awakens not to the sound of clocks, but to the soft lowing of cattle, the gentle clucking of chickens, the distant sound of church bells marking the canonical hours. These sounds are nature's own timekeeper, reliable and peaceful. The morning routine begins with the same tasks that have been performed for generations. First, the fire must be coaxed back to life from the embers that have been carefully preserved through the night. This process requires patience, blowing gently on the glowing coals, adding tiny pieces of kindling, waiting for the flame to catch. There's something deeply satisfying about this daily ritual, this connection to the element that provides warmth and light. Next comes the care of the animals. The family cow must be milked, her warm presence comforting in the cool morning air. The chickens must be fed, their soft clucking creating a gentle background chorus. The pig, if the family is fortunate enough to have one, must be given its morning meal of scraps and whatever can be foraged. These tasks are performed with the same careful attention each day. There's no rushing, no hurry, just the steady, methodical completion of necessary work. The repetition is soothing, almost hypnotic. Each motion has been perfected through countless repetitions, creating a meditative flow of activity. After the animals are cared for, breakfast is prepared. This meal is simple but nourishing. Perhaps a piece of coarse bread, some cheese if the family is fortunate, a cup of weak ale. The family eats together, sharing not just food, but conversation, planning the day's activities, discussing the weather, the crops, the small events that make up village life. The conversation flows slowly, naturally. There's no rush to finish eating and move on to the next thing. Instead, there's a gentle appreciation for this moment of togetherness, this shared start to the day. The voices are soft, comfortable, like a warm blanket wrapped around the morning. As the sun climbs higher, it's time to head to the fields. The peasant collects the tools of his trade, a wooden plow, perhaps drawn by the family ox, a scythe for cutting grain, a hoe for working the soil. These tools are simple but effective, worn smooth by countless hands, perfectly balanced for the work they must perform. The walk to the fields is peaceful, unhurried. The path winds through the village, past other homes where families are beginning their own daily routines. There's a comfortable sense of community, of everyone working together toward the same goals: survival, sustenance, the continuation of life. In the fields, the work is hard, but rhythmic. The plow cuts through the earth in long, straight furrows. The ox moving at a steady pace that matches the natural rhythm of the work. Behind the plow, the peasant walks steadily, his feet finding purchase in the soft earth, his breathing falling into the same rhythm as his steps. The work continues hour after hour, but there's something almost trance-like about it. The repetitive motion, the steady pace, the connection to the earth. It all combines to create a kind of meditation in motion. The mind doesn't need to work hard or think complex thoughts. Instead, it can simply rest in the rhythm of the work, letting the body move automatically while the spirit finds peace. As the day progresses, the sun moves slowly across the sky, casting long shadows across the fields. The peasant works steadily, stopping occasionally to rest, to drink from a water jug, to wipe the sweat from his brow. These breaks are brief but refreshing, moments of complete stillness in the midst of the day's labor. Other workers can be seen in neighboring fields, their movements synchronized with the same ancient rhythms. There's a sense of connection, of shared purpose that transcends individual concerns. Everyone is working toward the same goal, bringing in the harvest, preparing for winter, ensuring the survival of the community. The afternoon brings its own rhythm. The sun is warm on the back. The earth is soft beneath the feet. The tools feel familiar and comfortable in the hands. The work continues, but it's no longer about rushing to complete tasks. Instead, it's about moving in harmony with the natural world, letting the day unfold at its own pace. As evening approaches, the pace of work gradually slows. The tools are cleaned and put away. The animals are gathered and led back to their shelters. The day's work is complete, and there's a deep sense of satisfaction in having contributed to the continuation of life. The walk home is peaceful, contemplative. The sun is setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. The air is cooling, carrying the scent of wood smoke from cooking fires. The village is settling into its evening routine, preparing for the night ahead. Back at home, the evening meal is prepared with the same careful attention as the morning routine. The fire is built up. The simple ingredients are combined to create a nourishing stew. The family gathers around the table, sharing not just food, but stories of the day, plans for tomorrow. The gentle conversation that binds a family together. After the meal, there's time for quiet activities. Perhaps the women of the household work on spinning or weaving, their hands moving in practiced motions while they talk softly among themselves. The men might repair tools or work on simple crafts, their movements sure and economical. The children play quiet games or listen to stories told by the elders. These stories are repeated night after night, familiar and comforting, like old friends. They tell of heroes and adventures, of lessons learned and wisdom gained, of the connection between past and present. As the fire burns lower, the family prepares for sleep. The evening prayers are said, simple words of gratitude and hope. The fire is banked for the night. The door is secured. The family settles into their shared bed. In the darkness, the sounds of the village gradually fade. The lowing of cattle becomes softer, more distant. The murmur of voices dies away. The only sounds are the gentle breathing of the sleeping family, the soft crackling of the dying fire, the whisper of wind through the thatch. And in this profound quiet, surrounded by the people they love, secure in their simple home, the medieval peasant drifts off to sleep, ready to begin the cycle again with the rising sun. But life in medieval times was not always as peaceful as these quiet moments suggest. There were harsh realities that shaped every day, challenges that required remarkable resilience and strength. Yet even in describing these difficulties, we find a strange kind of comfort in understanding how humans have always found ways to endure, to adapt, to find moments of peace even in the most challenging circumstances. Disease was a constant companion in medieval life, arriving uninvited and often staying far too long. But the response to illness reveals something beautiful about human nature, the way communities came together, the way families cared for each other, the way hope persisted even in the darkest moments. When someone fell ill, the entire household would reorganize itself around their care. The sick person would be moved closer to the fire, surrounded by the warmth and love of their family. Herbal remedies would be prepared with careful attention. Willow bark for pain, chamomile for stomach troubles, honey for wounds. These remedies were passed down through generations, each family treasuring their knowledge of healing. The process of caring for the sick was slow and methodical. There was no rushing, no impatience. Instead, there was a gentle acceptance of the time it takes for bodies to heal, for strength to return. Family members would take turns sitting with the patient, offering comfort, telling stories, simply being present in the way that only loved ones can be. Even when remedies failed, even when death came to call, there was a profound sense of community support. Neighbors would arrive with food, with offers of help, with the simple gift of their presence. The dying person would be surrounded by love, by familiar voices, by the knowledge that they were not alone. The burial rituals were simple but deeply meaningful. The body would be wrapped in a simple shroud, carried to the churchyard by friends and family. The grave would be dug by community members, each taking their turn with the shovel. The priest would say the ancient words of comfort and hope, and afterwards, the community would gather to share a meal, to tell stories about the deceased, to celebrate a life lived. Malnutrition was another constant challenge, but it led to a deep appreciation for every morsel of food. Nothing was wasted. Everything was treasured. The simple act of sharing a meal became a sacred ritual, a celebration of survival and community. During times of scarcity, the community would come together to share what little they had. A family with a bit of grain would share with neighbors who had none. Those with access to wild berries or nuts would distribute them freely. This sharing was not done grudgingly, but with the understanding that survival depended on everyone working together. The process of preparing food was itself a meditation. Grain had to be carefully ground by hand, the motion of the quernstone creating a rhythmic sound that was both soothing and productive. Bread had to be kneaded thoroughly, the repetitive motion of pushing and folding the dough creating a kind of moving meditation. Even the simplest meal was prepared with care and attention. A pot of porridge would be stirred slowly, thoughtfully, the cook paying attention to the texture, the smell, the gradual transformation of raw ingredients into nourishment. This careful attention to the process of cooking was both practical and spiritual, a way of honoring the food, the work that went into producing it, and the people who would consume it. Violence was another harsh reality of medieval life, but it led to a deep appreciation for moments of peace and safety. The evening hours, when the family was gathered safely inside their home, became especially precious. The sound of the bar being dropped across the door was a signal that the day's dangers were past, that the night could be spent in security and rest. The medieval justice system was harsh and often brutal, but it also fostered a strong sense of community responsibility. Everyone knew that their actions affected not just themselves, but their entire family, their entire village. This created a powerful incentive for cooperation, for peaceful resolution of conflicts, for the maintenance of social harmony. When conflicts did arise, they were often resolved through community mediation. Elders would gather to hear both sides of a dispute, to seek common ground, to find solutions that preserved the peace. These sessions were conducted with patience and wisdom, with the understanding that the goal was not punishment, but restoration of harmony. The oppressive social hierarchy was a source of constant frustration, but it also created a sense of place and belonging. Everyone knew their role, their responsibilities, their place in the community. There was security in this knowledge, even if it came at the cost of limited mobility and opportunity. The lord of the manor had absolute power over his peasants, but he also had absolute responsibility for their welfare. In times of crisis, he was expected to provide protection, to share from his stores, to ensure the survival of his people. This created a complex web of mutual obligation that, while restrictive, also provided a safety net for those at the bottom of the social ladder. The daily reminders of one's place in the hierarchy, the bow to the Lord, the payment of taxes, the requirement to work on the Lord's land, were accepted not with resentment, but with the understanding that this was simply the way the world worked. There was a kind of peace in this acceptance, a freedom from the constant striving for advancement that characterizes modern life. Women faced particular challenges in medieval society, but they also found ways to create spaces of power and influence within the constraints of their time. The household was their domain, and within it, they exercised considerable authority. The kitchen, the garden, the care of children and animals. These were areas where women's knowledge and skills were essential and respected. The sisterhood among women was particularly strong. They would gather to help each other with childbirth, to share knowledge about herbs and healing, to support each other through the challenges of daily life. These gatherings were both practical and social, creating bonds of friendship and mutual support that lasted throughout their lives. The process of childbirth was surrounded by ritual and community support. When a woman went into labor, the other women of the village would gather to assist, to offer comfort, to share in the miraculous process of bringing new life into the world. The birth chamber would be filled with gentle voices, warm hands, and the accumulated wisdom of generations of mothers. Even in the face of high infant mortality, there was a deep appreciation for each child, each moment of life. Babies were treasured, celebrated, surrounded by love and protection. The lullabies sung to medieval babies were the same ones that had been sung for generations, connecting each new life to the long chain of human experience. Through all these challenges, disease, hunger, violence, oppression, medieval people found ways to maintain hope, to find joy in small moments, to create meaning in their daily lives. They developed a profound appreciation for the simple pleasures that were available to them: the warmth of the fire, the taste of fresh bread, the sound of children laughing, the comfort of family gathered close. This resilience, this ability to find peace and meaning even in the midst of hardship, is perhaps the most remarkable aspect of medieval life. It reminds us that humans have always possessed the capacity to endure, to adapt, to find light in the darkness. And in understanding this, we find a kind of comfort for our own struggles, our own challenges, our own search for meaning and peace. In medieval life, spirituality was not separate from daily existence. It was woven into every moment, every task, every breath. The rhythm of the day was marked not by clocks, but by the bells of the church, calling the faithful to prayer at regular intervals throughout the day and night. The sound of these bells was deeply comforting, a constant reminder of the presence of the divine in everyday life. prime at dawn, terce at mid-morning, sext at noon, none in the afternoon, vespers at evening, and compline at night, each bell creating a moment of pause, a moment of reflection, a moment of connection with something greater than oneself. When the bells rang, work would slow, voices would quiet, and for a moment, the entire village would be united in prayer. There was something profoundly peaceful about this shared rhythm, this collective turning toward the divine. Even those who could not read could participate in this spiritual life, their hearts and minds attuned to the ancient rhythms of prayer and contemplation. The village church was the heart of the community, its stone walls holding generations of prayers, sorrows, and celebrations. The building itself was a testament to the faith of the people, constructed slowly over many years, with each stone placed with care and devotion. The very act of building the church was a form of prayer, a way of offering one's labor and skill to the glory of God. Inside the church, the atmosphere was one of profound reverence and peace. The light filtered through small windows, creating pools of colored light on the stone floor. The air was filled with the scent of incense, the sound of Latin prayers, the gentle murmur of the faithful at worship. Even those who could not understand the words could feel the power of the ritual, the connection to centuries of tradition and faith. The Mass was the central event of the week, drawing the entire community together in shared worship. The ritual was ancient and unchanging, its familiar rhythms providing comfort and stability in an uncertain world. The priest's voice would rise and fall in the ancient chants, the congregation responding with words that had been spoken by countless generations before them. The process of preparing for Mass was itself a form of meditation. The careful washing, the donning of the best clothes, the quiet walk to the church, all of these actions were performed with reverence and attention. Even the poorest peasant would have one set of clothes reserved for church, kept clean and mended with special care. During the service, the congregation would stand together, kneel together, respond together. There was a profound sense of unity in these shared actions, a feeling of being part of something larger than individual concerns. The Latin words might not be understood, but their meaning was felt in the heart, in the shared breath of the community, in the ancient rhythms of worship. The church calendar provided structure and meaning to the year. Advent brought anticipation and preparation. Christmas brought joy and celebration. Lent brought reflection and penance. Easter brought triumph and renewal. Each season had its own character, its own rituals, its own way of connecting the community to the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. The saints provided constant companions and intercessors. Each trade, each village, each family had its own patron saint, a spiritual protector who understood their particular struggles and joys. The stories of the saints were told and retold, providing examples of faith, courage, and perseverance. These stories were not just entertainment, but spiritual guidance, showing how ordinary people could live extraordinary lives of faith. Prayer was not confined to the church building, but was woven throughout the day. The peasant would pray while working in the fields. The mother would pray while caring for her children. The craftsman would pray while practicing his trade. These prayers were often simple and heartfelt, requests for protection, expressions of gratitude, appeals for help in times of need. The rhythm of prayer was as natural as breathing. The Ave Maria would be recited while walking, the Pater Noster while working, the Gloria while resting. These prayers were not burden, but comfort, not obligation, but opportunity for connection with the divine. They provided a constant reminder that no task was too small, no moment too ordinary to be offered to God. The practice of pilgrimage provided a way to step outside the routine of daily life and undertake a journey of spiritual significance. Whether to a local shrine or to a distant holy place, the pilgrimage was a chance to leave behind worldly concerns and focus entirely on spiritual matters. The journey itself was as important as the destination, with each step taken in prayer and contemplation. Even those who could not afford to travel far could participate in local pilgrimages to nearby shrines and holy places. These journeys were often undertaken in groups, with fellow pilgrims providing companionship and support. The shared experience of walking together, praying together, and seeking together created bonds of spiritual friendship that lasted long after the journey was complete. The monasteries provided examples of lives dedicated entirely to prayer and contemplation. The monks rose before dawn for the first service of the day, their voices joining in the ancient chants that had been sung for centuries. Their days were structured around prayer, work, and study, creating a rhythm of life that balanced spiritual and physical needs. The monastic tradition of Lectio Divina, the slow, contemplative reading of Scripture, provided a model for spiritual practice that could be adapted by lay people. Even those who could not read could practice this form of meditation, listening to the familiar stories and parables, allowing their meaning to sink deep into the heart and mind. The hours of prayer, matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, and compline created a structure that sanctified the entire day. Each hour had its own character, its own focus, its own way of turning the mind toward God. The faithful who couldn't attend all these services would still pause at the appropriate times, offering their own prayers and joining spiritually with the religious communities. The practice of fasting provided a way to discipline the body and focus the mind on spiritual matters. During Lent, the entire community would participate in this practice, sharing the experience of hunger and self-denial. But fasting was not just about deprivation. It was about creating space for prayer, about removing distractions, about focusing on what truly mattered. The celebration of feast days provided balance to the periods of fasting and penance. These celebrations were times of joy and community, when the entire village would come together to share food, music, and fellowship. The feast days were carefully spaced throughout the year, providing regular opportunities for celebration and renewal. The practice of confession provided a way to address the guilt and shame that are part of human experience. The priest would listen with compassion and understanding, offering not just absolution, but practical advice for living a better life. The penitential practices were designed not to punish, but to heal, not to condemn, but to restore. The tradition of contemplation provided a way to go beyond words and concepts to a direct experience of the divine. Even simple peasants could practice this form of prayer, sitting quietly by the fire in the evening, allowing their minds to rest in the presence of God. These moments of contemplation were deeply refreshing, providing a source of peace and strength that sustained them through the challenges of daily life. The understanding of death as a transition rather than an ending provided comfort in the face of loss. The prayers for the dead, the belief in the communion of saints, the hope of resurrection, all of these provided a framework for dealing with grief and loss. Death was not seen as the end of relationship, but as a transformation, a passage to a different form of existence. The practice of charity was seen not as optional, but as essential to spiritual life. The care of the poor, the sick, and the vulnerable was understood as a direct service to God. Even those who had little were expected to share with those who had less, creating a network of mutual support and compassion. The rhythm of the liturgical year provided a structure for spiritual growth and development. The penitential seasons prepared the heart for deeper experience. The celebratory seasons provided joy and renewal. The ordinary seasons provided time for growth and integration. This rhythm was as natural as the seasons themselves, providing a framework for the spiritual journey. Through all of these practices, prayer, worship, pilgrimage, fasting, contemplation, medieval people found ways to maintain connection with the divine, even in the midst of their daily struggles. Their faith was not separate from their work, their family life, their community responsibilities. Instead, it was the foundation that gave meaning and purpose to everything they did. This integration of spiritual and practical life created a sense of wholeness that is often missing in modern experience. Every moment was potentially sacred. Every task could be offered as prayer. Every relationship could be a reflection of divine love. In this understanding, we find a profound wisdom about the nature of spiritual life and the possibility of finding the sacred in the ordinary. The medieval year moved with the ancient rhythm of the seasons, each one bringing its own tasks, its own challenges, its own quiet pleasures. There was no fighting against this natural cycle, no attempt to impose human will upon the turning of the earth. Instead, there was a deep acceptance of the natural order, a peaceful surrender to the wisdom of the seasons. Spring arrived slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. The days grew gradually longer, the air grew gradually warmer, the earth began to stir with new life. The peasant would watch for the first signs, the budding of the trees, the return of the birds, the gentle green shoots pushing through the dark soil. These signs were not just noticed, but celebrated, welcomed as old friends returning after a long absence. The work of spring was hopeful work, full of promise and possibility. The fields had to be prepared for planting, the earth broken and turned, the seeds carefully placed in the soil. Each seed was a small act of faith, a belief that the future would provide sun and rain in the proper measure, that the earth would respond with abundance and growth. The plowing was done slowly, methodically, with attention to every furrow. The oxen moved at their own pace, and the peasant matched his rhythm to theirs. There was no rushing this process, no shortcut to proper preparation. The earth had to be turned completely, the soil broken down to the proper consistency, the field made ready to receive the seed. The sowing of the seed was done with ritual care. Each handful was precious, representing the hope of the family for the coming year. The seeds were scattered in a rhythm as old as agriculture itself, the sower's arm moving in a steady arc, the grain falling to earth in patterns that would, with luck and God's blessing, produce a harvest. As spring progressed, the planted fields began to show the first green shoots of new growth. The peasant would walk among the rows, checking the progress, pulling weeds, protecting the tender plants from birds and animals. This work was done with the patience of someone who understood that growth could not be hurried, that nature had its own timeline. The spring rains were welcomed with gratitude and relief. The sound of water falling on the earth was like a gentle lullaby, promising life and growth. The peasant would stand in the doorway of his home, watching the rain fall, feeling the deep satisfaction of knowing that his crops were being nourished, that the cycle of growth was proceeding as it should. Summer brought longer days and harder work, but also the satisfaction of seeing the results of spring's labor. The grain grew tall and strong. The vegetables flourished in the garden. The animals grew fat on the abundant grass. The work was demanding but rewarding, each day bringing visible progress toward the harvest. The summer days began before dawn and continued until after sunset. But the work was done at a pace that matched the natural rhythm of the season. There were breaks for rest and refreshment, time for conversation and companionship, moments of quiet appreciation for the beauty of the growing world. The hay harvest was a community effort, with families working together to cut, dry, and store the grass that would feed their animals through the winter. The work was hard, but social, filled with conversation and laughter. The scythes moved in rhythm, the workers calling to each other across the fields, the rhythm of the work creating its own kind of music. The long summer evenings were times of special pleasure. The work was done. The family gathered outside to enjoy the cooling air. The children played in the fading light. The adults sat and talked quietly among themselves. These moments of rest and companionship were deeply treasured, islands of peace in the midst of the busy season. Autumn brought the harvest, the culmination of the year's work. The grain was cut and gathered. The vegetables were harvested and stored. The animals were prepared for winter. This was a time of intense activity, but also of deep satisfaction, the fulfillment of the hopes planted in the spring. The harvest was celebrated with festivals and feasts, the community coming together to share the abundance of the season. The successful harvest was seen not just as the result of human effort, but as a gift from God, a blessing to be received with gratitude and shared with others. The preparation for winter was done with careful attention to detail. The grain was stored in dry places, protected from moisture and vermin. The vegetables were preserved through various methods: drying, salting, storing in root cellars. The animals were assessed, with decisions made about which ones would be kept through the winter and which ones would be slaughtered. The slaughter of animals was done with reverence and care. Nothing was wasted. The meat was preserved. The hides were tanned. The bones were used for tools and implements. The process was seen not as destruction, but as transformation. The animal's life continuing in new forms to sustain the family through the winter. Winter was the quiet season, the time of rest and reflection. The days were short, the nights were long, and the family gathered close around the fire. This was the season for storytelling, for quiet crafts, for the maintenance of tools and equipment. The pace of life slowed dramatically, matching the rhythm of the sleeping earth. The winter evenings were especially peaceful. The family would gather around the fire, the women spinning or sewing, the men carving or repairing, the children playing quiet games or listening to stories. The fire provided both light and warmth, its flickering flames creating a circle of comfort and security. The stories told during these long winter evenings were the same ones that had been told for generations. They were familiar and comforting, like old friends. The children would listen with rapt attention, even though they knew the stories by heart. The repetition was part of the comfort, the knowing that some things remained constant in a world of change. The winter months were also the time for the most important religious observances. Advent brought anticipation and preparation. Christmas brought joy and celebration. Epiphany brought wonder and revelation. These observances provided structure and meaning to the dark months, reminders of light and hope in the midst of winter's darkness. The Christmas season was especially magical. The church was decorated with evergreen boughs, candles provided extra light, special foods were prepared and shared. The entire community participated in the celebration, rich and poor alike, joining in the ancient rituals that marked the birth of hope in the darkest time of the year. The 12 days of Christmas were filled with celebration and feasting. Work was set aside, normal routines were suspended, and the community devoted itself to joy and fellowship. These days were seen as a foretaste of the eternal celebration, a glimpse of the peace and joy that awaited in the next life. As winter slowly gave way to spring, the cycle began again. The lengthening days brought new hope, new energy, new possibilities. The peasant would begin to think about the coming planting season, to plan for the year ahead, to prepare for another turn of the eternal wheel. This rhythm of the seasons provided a deep sense of security and meaning. Each season had its proper place its necessary role in the cycle of life. There was no rushing ahead, no trying to skip steps, no impatience with the natural order. Instead, there was a peaceful acceptance of the way things were, a trust in the wisdom of the cycles that had governed human life since the beginning of time. In this rhythm, we find a profound wisdom about the nature of time and the importance of being present to each moment, each season, each phase of life. The medieval peasant understood something that we have largely forgotten: that time is not something to be conquered or managed, but something to be lived, to be experienced, to be savored in all its richness and complexity. In the medieval world, no one lived in isolation. The village was a web of relationships, connections, and mutual dependencies that created a sense of belonging rarely found in our modern world. Every person had their place, their role, their importance in the intricate tapestry of community life. The bonds between neighbors were not casual friendships, but essential partnerships for survival. When one family's roof needed repair, the entire village would contribute labor and materials. When illness struck a household, neighbors would arrive with food, care, and support without being asked. These acts of mutual aid were not seen as charity, but as the natural order of things, the way communities had always functioned. The village well was more than just a source of water. It was a meeting place, a center of social life where news was shared, gossip was exchanged, and relationships were maintained. The daily journey to fetch water provided an opportunity for conversation, for checking on neighbors, for staying connected to the rhythm of village life. The sound of voices at the well was a constant, comforting presence, a reminder that one was never truly alone. Children grew up not just in their own families, but in the embrace of the entire community. Everyone knew everyone else's children, and everyone felt responsible for their welfare. A child wandering too far from home would be gently guided back by any adult who saw them. Misbehavior was corrected not just by parents, but by the entire community, creating a network of care and guidance that surrounded each child. The relationship between husband and wife was shaped by necessity and mutual dependence. While romantic love, as we understand it today, was not the primary basis for marriage, deep affection and partnership often grew from shared struggles and common goals. The division of labor was clear and necessary. The man worked the fields, the woman managed the household, but both roles were essential and valued. The marriage ceremony itself was a community event, with the entire village participating in the celebration. The couple was not just joining their lives together, but becoming part of the fabric of the community. The wedding feast was a time of joy and abundance, even in the poorest villages, with everyone contributing what they could to make the celebration memorable. The relationship between parents and children was marked by both tenderness and practicality. Children were loved and cherished, but they were also expected to contribute to the family's survival from an early age. The teaching of skills was done patiently, with each child learning the trades and crafts that would sustain them throughout their lives. The elderly were treated with respect and reverence, their wisdom and experience valued by the entire community. They were the keepers of traditions, the tellers of stories, the sources of guidance when difficult decisions needed to be made. The care of aging parents was not seen as a burden, but as a sacred duty, a way of honoring the gifts they had given throughout their lives. The relationship between the Lord and his peasants was complex and multifaceted. While the peasants owed labor and loyalty to their Lord, he in turn owed them protection and support. During times of war, the Lord's castle provided refuge for the entire community. During times of famine, the Lord was expected to share from his stores to prevent his people from starving. The village priest was another central figure in the community, providing not just spiritual guidance, but practical counsel and support. He was often the only literate person in the village, serving as a link between the local community and the wider world. His house was a place of sanctuary, where disputes could be mediated and the troubled could find comfort. The craftspeople of the village, the blacksmith, the miller, the carpenter, held positions of special importance and respect. Their skills were essential to the community's survival, and they were often among the most prosperous members of the village. The sound of the blacksmith's hammer, the turning of the mill wheel, the scraping of the carpenter's plane, these sounds were the heartbeat of village life. The seasonal festivals and celebrations provided opportunities for the entire community to come together in joy and fellowship. The harvest festival was a time of thanksgiving and abundance, with dancing, singing, and feasting that lasted long into the night. The May Day celebrations marked the return of spring with flowers, music, and the ancient rituals of renewal. The funeral rites were community events as well, with the entire village participating in the mourning and celebration of a life well lived. The preparation of the body, the digging of the grave, the sharing of food after the service, all of these were done collectively, with the community supporting the grieving family through their time of loss. The gossip and news that circulated through the village served important social functions, keeping everyone informed about the welfare of their neighbors and the events that affected the community. The networks of communication were informal but effective, ensuring that important information reached everyone who needed to know. The disputes and conflicts that inevitably arose in any community were handled through established customs and traditions. The village elders would hear both sides of an argument, seek to understand the underlying issues, and work toward solutions that preserved the peace and harmony of the community. These processes were slow and deliberate, focused on restoration rather than punishment. The young people of the village formed their own social networks, centered around work and play. The boys would work together in the fields, learning from each other and forming friendships that would last throughout their lives. The girls would gather for spinning and weaving, sharing stories and dreams while their hands worked with practiced skill. The courtship rituals were public affairs, with the entire community aware of developing relationships and offering guidance and support. The young couples would meet at community gatherings under the watchful eyes of parents and neighbors who had a vested interest in successful matches. The shared hardships of medieval life created bonds of solidarity and mutual support that were both practical and emotional. When disaster struck, whether in the form of crop failure, disease, or violence, the community would rally together, sharing resources and providing comfort to those in need. These experiences of shared struggle created a depth of connection that is difficult to achieve in more prosperous times. The isolation of the medieval village from the wider world meant that the relationships within the community were especially precious and carefully maintained. Everyone knew that they would be living with the same people for their entire lives. And this knowledge encouraged patience, forgiveness, and the constant work of maintaining harmony. The rituals of daily life, the sharing of meals, the gathering at the well, the evening conversations by the fire, all served to strengthen the bonds between community members. These moments of connection were not seen as separate from the work of survival, but as an essential part of it, creating the social fabric that made survival possible. In the gentle rhythm of these relationships, in the quiet satisfaction of belonging to something larger than oneself, the medieval peasant found a kind of peace that transcended the hardships of daily life. The knowledge that one was known, valued, and cared for provided a security that no amount of material wealth could replace. And in the evening, as the village settled into sleep, each person could rest in the comfort of knowing that they were held in the embrace of a community that would endure long after they were gone. As the sun sets over the medieval village, a profound quiet settles over the landscape. The work of the day is complete, The animals are secure in their shelters, and the families gather in their homes for the most peaceful hours of the day. This is the time when the harsh realities of medieval life fade into the background, replaced by the simple comfort of warmth, safety, and belonging. The light fades slowly, gradually, painting the sky in soft shades of purple and gold. There is no sudden transition from day to night, no abrupt change in the rhythm of life. Instead, there is a gentle sliding from the activity of day into the rest of evening, a natural progression that matches the body's own rhythms and needs. In the peasant's cottage, the fire burns low and steady, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The flames move in patterns that seem to tell stories of their own, hypnotic and soothing, drawing the eye and quieting the mind. The sound of the fire is subtle but constant. The soft crackling of burning wood, the gentle hiss of sap, the almost inaudible whisper of rising smoke. The family gathers around this fire, their faces illuminated by its warm glow. The harsh lines of worry and fatigue that mark the daylight hours seem to soften in the firelight, replaced by expressions of contentment and peace. The work is done. The day's struggles are over, and there is nothing left to do but rest and be together. The evening meal is simple but satisfying. Perhaps a bowl of thick pottage made from whatever vegetables are available, seasoned with herbs from the garden. The bread is coarse but nourishing, baked in the village oven with grain that the family has grown and harvested themselves. The ale is weak but warming, providing just enough alcohol to ease the aches and pains of the day's labor. The family eats slowly, without hurry or stress. There is time for conversation, for sharing the small events of the day, for discussing plans for tomorrow. The voices are soft and comfortable, creating a gentle background of human warmth and connection. The children tell of their discoveries and adventures. The adults share news from the fields and village, and the elderly contribute their wisdom and memories. After the meal, the family settles into their evening activities. The women might work on spinning or embroidery, their hands moving in practiced motions that require no conscious thought. The repetitive movements are soothing, almost meditative, creating a rhythm that matches the gentle crackling of the fire. The men might repair tools or work on small crafts, their movements sure and economical, making the most of the limited light. The children play quiet games or listen to stories told by their elders. These stories are familiar and comforting, passed down through generations, carrying the wisdom and values of the community. The children listen with rapt attention, even though they know the stories by heart. The repetition is part of the comfort, the knowing that some things remain constant in a world of change. As the fire burns lower, the family prepares for sleep. The evening prayers are said, simple words of gratitude and hope. The day's work is offered up with thanksgiving. The night's rest is sought with confidence. The prayers are not elaborate or formal, but heartfelt expressions of faith and trust in the providence that has sustained them through another day. The process of preparing for sleep is unhurried and peaceful. The fire is banked to last through the night, providing warmth and a small amount of light. The door is barred against any dangers that might lurk in the darkness outside. The family bed is prepared with clean straw and warm blankets, creating a nest of comfort and security. The bedroom, if it can be called that, is simply a corner of the main room, separated by a curtain or wooden partition. The bed is large enough for the entire family, with parents and children sharing the warmth and security of close contact. In the darkness, the sounds of breathing gradually slow and deepen, creating a gentle rhythm that speaks of peace and rest. Outside, the village settles into its own quiet rhythm. The sounds of the day, the lowing of cattle, the barking of dogs, the voices of neighbors, gradually fade into silence. The only sounds are the gentle ones of night, the whisper of wind through the thatch, the distant call of an owl, the soft rustling of small creatures going about their nighttime activities. The darkness is complete and enveloping, unmarked by any artificial light. The stars shine with a brilliance unknown in our modern world, their light providing a gentle illumination that connects the earth to the vast cosmos above. The moon, when it is visible, casts enough light to see by, creating a landscape of soft shadows and gentle illumination. In this profound quiet, the medieval peasant finds a kind of peace that is difficult to achieve in our modern world. There are no urgent demands, no electronic distractions, no artificial stimulation to keep the mind active and alert. Instead, there is only the gentle rhythm of natural rest, the body's own need for sleep and renewal. The transition from waking to sleeping is gradual and natural. There is no sudden switching off of consciousness, but a gentle sliding from awareness into dreams. The mind, freed from the concerns of the day, begins to wander in the realm of sleep, processing the experiences of the day and preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. The dreams of the medieval peasant are likely simple and peaceful, reflecting the rhythms and concerns of daily life. Perhaps dreams of successful harvests, of healthy animals, of family gatherings, and community celebrations. These dreams are not elaborate fantasies, but gentle reflections of the hopes and fears that shape daily existence. The sleep is deep and restorative, unmarked by the anxiety and stress that characterize modern rest. The body, exhausted by the day's physical labor, surrenders completely to the need for rest and renewal. The mind, freed from the constant stimulation of modern life, finds the peace it needs to process and integrate the experiences of the day. Through the long hours of the night, the family sleeps peacefully, their breathing creating a gentle rhythm that speaks of security and contentment. The fire burns low, but steady, providing warmth and a small amount of light. The village around them sleeps as well, creating a community of rest and renewal that encompasses the entire settlement. In the early hours of the morning, just before dawn, there is a special quality to the quiet. The night is ending, but the day has not yet begun. This is the time of deepest rest, when the body and mind are most completely at peace. The breathing is slow and regular. The heart rate is low and steady, and the entire being is surrendered to the healing power of sleep. This is the rhythm of medieval rest, natural, peaceful, and deeply restorative. It is rest that comes from physical exhaustion and mental peace, from the satisfaction of work well done and the security of community support. It is rest that prepares the body and mind for another day of labor and life, another turn in the eternal cycle of work and rest, struggle and peace. In these quiet hours, we find something that our modern world has largely lost: the ability to rest completely, to surrender fully to the natural rhythms of sleep and renewal. The medieval peasant, for all the hardships of daily life, possessed this gift of deep and restorative rest. And in understanding this, we glimpse something essential about the nature of human well-being and the importance of finding peace in the midst of life's struggles. And so, we come to the end of our journey through medieval life. As the last embers of the fire burn low and the village settles into the deepest quiet of the night, the harsh realities we have explored, the disease, the hunger, the endless toil, seem distant now, softened by the gentle darkness and the profound peace that comes with complete rest. In this final hour, let us simply rest with our medieval family, sharing in their deep contentment and natural rhythm of sleep. The day's work is done. The evening's activities have wound down, and there is nothing left to do but surrender to the healing power of rest. The fire has burned down to glowing coals, casting the faintest red light on the walls of the cottage. The heat is still present, warming the space and providing comfort, but the bright flames have given way to the steady glow of lasting embers. This gentle light is just enough to see by, but not enough to keep the mind active and alert. The family lies together in their shared bed, wrapped in rough wool blankets that have been warmed by their bodies. The straw beneath them rustles softly when they move, but mostly they lie still, their breathing slow and regular, their bodies completely relaxed after the day's labor. The children are the first to succumb to sleep, their young bodies surrendering quickly to exhaustion. Their breathing is soft and regular, occasionally interrupted by a gentle sigh or a quiet murmur. They sleep with the complete abandonment of the innocent, their faces peaceful and untroubled in the dim light. The adults follow more slowly, their minds taking longer to release the concerns and responsibilities of the day. But gradually, inevitably, they too surrender to sleep, their breathing joining the gentle rhythm of their children. The parents' hands rest protectively near their children, even in sleep, maintaining their watchful care. Outside, the village is completely quiet now. The last conversations have ended. The last fires have been banked. The last prayers have been said. The only sounds are the gentle ones of night, the whisper of wind through the thatch, the distant call of an owl, the soft breathing of sleeping animals. The darkness is complete and enveloping, wrapping the village in a blanket of peace and security. The stars shine overhead, their ancient light providing a gentle connection to the vast cosmos above. The moon, whether visible or not, pulls at the tides of sleep, drawing the villagers deeper into rest and renewal. In this profound quiet, time seems to slow and stretch. The hours pass gently, marked only by the gradual cooling of the fire and the slow progression of the stars across the sky. There is no urgency, no pressure, no need to be anywhere or do anything. There is only the gentle rhythm of natural rest, the body's own need for sleep and renewal. The breathing of the sleeping family creates its own gentle rhythm, a soft percussion that speaks of life and peace. In and out, in and out. The rhythm is hypnotic and soothing, drawing the listener into its peaceful cadence. This is the sound of contentment, of security, of complete surrender to the natural need for rest. The dreams that come in these deep hours are gentle and peaceful, reflecting the rhythms and concerns of daily life, but softened by the healing power of sleep. Perhaps dreams of successful harvests, of healthy animals, of family gatherings and community celebrations. These dreams are not elaborate fantasies, but gentle reflections of the hopes and fears that shape daily existence. The sleep deepens as the night progresses, the body and mind finding the complete rest they need. The breathing becomes even slower and more regular. The heart rate drops to its lowest point, and the entire being surrenders to the healing power of sleep. This is restorative sleep, the kind that repairs the body and refreshes the spirit. In these quiet hours, the harsh realities of medieval life seem to fade away, replaced by the profound peace that comes with complete rest. The disease and hunger, the endless toil and struggle, the uncertainty and danger, all of these retreat into the background, overwhelmed by the simple comfort of warmth, safety, and belonging. The fire burns lower still, the coals glowing with a steady warmth that will last through the night. The cottage is filled with the gentle sounds of deep sleep, the soft breathing of the family, the quiet settling of the wooden beams, the almost inaudible whisper of air moving through the thatch. And in this profound quiet, we too can find rest. The journey through medieval life has shown us something essential about the human capacity for finding peace in the midst of struggle, for creating meaning in the face of hardship, for building community in the midst of isolation. These lessons speak to us across the centuries, reminding us of our own capacity for resilience and hope. The medieval peasant, for all the hardships of daily life, possessed something that our modern world has largely lost: the ability to rest completely, to find peace in simplicity, to surrender fully to the natural rhythms of life and sleep. In understanding this, we glimpse something essential about the nature of human well-being and the importance of finding peace in the midst of life's struggles. So let us rest now with our medieval family, sharing in their deep contentment and natural rhythm of sleep. Let the gentle breathing of the sleeping children draw us into peace. Let the dying fire warm our spirits. Let the profound quiet of the medieval night embrace us in its healing darkness. The day's work is done. The evening's activities have wound down, and there is nothing left to do but surrender to the healing power of rest. The breathing slows, the heart rate drops, the mind releases its hold on the concerns of the day, and we drift gently into the peaceful realm of sleep, carried by the ancient rhythms that have sustained human rest for countless generations. In and out, in and out. The gentle rhythm continues, drawing us deeper into peace, deeper into rest, deeper into the healing darkness of natural sleep. The medieval world fades gently away, leaving only the profound quiet of the night and the eternal rhythm of breath and rest that connects us to all humanity across the ages. Sleep well, rest deeply, and let the peace of the medieval night carry you gently into dreams.